The key factor is, luck, serendipity, as I call it, and you have to make your own luck. And why I say luck, a lot of opportunities are floating around everybody, but sometimes you don't notice them because you're not looking for it. And I'm saying this, 6 or 7 out of 10 of the new talent we've hired is based on their Instagram page. So please create an Instagram presence. I hired a Canadian Iranian. HR have found him.
Oh, wow.
Can you tell me?
Yeah.
We found him on Insta, we sent him a message, he responded, and we hired him, and he designed the thari.
Such an honor and privilege for me to have you here, sit face to face, interview you, and ask you some questions which are so important to answer and address in today's time. Because there are so many ongoing myths and rumors and misconceptions, I would say, about design. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
You are no less than a hero to me.
Oh, come on.
So whatever you have done for the Indian design industry, it's mind-blowing.
Thank you, Saket. Thank you for coming, first of all, and having me on your incredible show and podcast. The subject is very dear to me, and like I said, I try and make some LinkedIn posts or some videos with people like you to just clarify, spread the message. Like you said, there are some misconceptions, there are some there's a lack of clarity in some other cases, or there's a pure lack of information in others, right? And because I get almost 10, 20 sort of requests a day, how to become a designer, or I'm studying this and can I switch to that? And, I said that, look, we must do something, which hopefully answers or at least deals with some of these questions. So thank you for making the time, coming to our lovely Mahindra India Design Studio. We call MIDS.
It's brilliant.
As you know, it's a part of our global design studio network. We have MADE in the UK, and we have on projects we have Pininfarina. So these 3 studios form basically Mahindra Global Design, and thank you for being here in Mumbai with us.
It's our pleasure, and because of the limited time, we have limited ourselves to this topic of automotive design as a career.
Yeah.
The topic which is very dear to you.
Yeah.
Before jumping into that, see, all of us, we know your journey. We have been following you, but let me ask you a slightly different question. I would say whatever you have achieved, only few designers are able to achieve it. So if I have to ask you, what are those unique aspects or characteristics about you as a person and as a designer? What made a difference and what helped you to, reach to this point?
Yeah. So, many people have gone way beyond, but I don't want to sort of compare. But what I can say, a couple of things in my own case. One is, of course, the love for design, the love for all things design, even if it's a piece of, food you're eating, if it's architecture, if it's music, if it's graphics. I had an intense interest in that to begin with.
Wow.
If I wasn't a car designer, I always say I would have ended up being an architect, hopefully, perhaps a very bad one, but that's what I would have pursued. Because in our time, we didn't even know there was a profession called car design or design at all, So one was that, that an intense love for beauty, for function, and the curiosity around it. I used to really notice very carefully why one car is this way or a bike is that way. So that was one curiosity. In general, hard work, I think, goes with the territory. Everyone has to put in that. But I think the key factor is, luck, serendipity, as I call it. And you have to make your own luck. Saket, we are not going into it, but, wherever I worked in Piaggio in Italy, or Mitsubishi or Mercedes in Japan, or Tata Motors, or here, you have to make your luck. And why I say that is that, you must ask companies or people you want to work for, you have to initiate that discussion, and you have to ask that, can I work for you? Is there a role I can, fit into, etc. The worst they can say is no, right? But the possibility that they say yes can change your life completely.
True.
So I'll give you just one example. While I was finishing our CA, we were obviously applying everywhere and globally. And this opportunity came up from Japan,
Okay.
and which was the Mitsubishi opportunity. And I worked there for a year. Mitsubishi and Mercedes-Benz or Daimler Chrysler were one group. And then they went their own separate ways within 1 year of me joining Mitsubishi
Okay.
in 2003-4. And the person I wanted to work with was, Olivier Boulay. He went into the Mercedes-Benz side.
Okay.
And I just said, look, let me just write an email saying that, I would love to work for you. Is there a possibility to work in Mercedes-Benz? Then he wrote back and I went and met him and I said, I presented to you in Mitsubishi and now you're in Mercedes. I would love to join you here. And it happened. So you have to make that luck, I think, and take those opportunities and always ask, if you can be a part of something. And the other thing is, choose who you want to work for. I think it's very important. The alignment of a corporate philosophy or the philosophy of a person or a design leader, that alignment to what you personally feel is very important. Then you don't have that struggle that, I'm designing something which I don't really want to, or the company thinks in a certain way. That conflict can be difficult to deal with. So if you're choosing, I always say choose your boss. And you will obviously try and choose your boss based on what he or she has done. And that alignment to your own way of being is very important. And I think that's helped, so, and why I say luck and you make your own luck, a lot of opportunities actually are floating around everybody. But sometimes you don't notice them because you're not looking for it, right? So I think you should keep your eyes and ears open and see direction in which the company you want to work for is going, and then if you can somehow, make contact with them. So that's helped me a lot through my sort of 20 or 25 years of sort of design.
Brilliant. Just because you mentioned that last point, that ask what you want to do, the worst thing can happen if somebody will say no.
Say no.
And I would say when you were shooting a podcast with Sam on Crown Unfiltered, that time I listened to this advice from you because you also mentioned this thing. And that time I also happened to ask something to my boss.
Yeah.
Because, I was remembering you and I was saying what worst could happen is he'll say no.
He said no.
And, surprisingly, he said yes. And that perfectly makes sense when you talk.
Yeah.
I have gone through the same experience.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful advice.
And Saket, it can be life-changing, actually.
True.
In my 3 or 4 cases where I've done that, it's been life-changing. I've either moved to a new country or a new company or got into a new sector. When I moved from 2-wheelers in Piaggio to 4-wheelers in, like I said, in Mitsubishi, it changed my life, right? I moved from Italy to UK to all the way to Japan, so it's only because you asked and you took the chance.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah.
So you might not remember, but I met you back in 2016 at Delhi Expo.
Yeah.
And that was the time when you were presenting the impact design philosophy for Tata Motors. And I was blown away. I was representing Honda back then. And so what I noticed was you as a designer, you always had this very interesting take on design. And because we are talking about automotive design as a career, and probably the definition of it varies for every designer in some way or other, I want to understand, according to you, based on your, this impactful career, what is automobile design?
Obviously it's a complex question and a complex answer, but I'll try to simplify it. I think automotive design is nothing but the combination of where a company or a brand is in a point in time and where it wants to go.
Okay.
If you understand that, that what does this brand that you are working for, what does it stand for? And if the life of that brand or that product is, let's say, 7 to 10 years, where will the world be? And if you get that combination right, so I never feel there's anything called good design and bad design. It's only what's appropriate. At a certain point in time, what's appropriate is actually good. What's not appropriate will never work, right? So when I was in the previous company, we had to really make a noise about design because it had fallen, way below let's say the waterline of where design was. That's why we said impact design. In Mahindra, we have what we call hardcore design, which is, hardcore SUVs straight from the heart. There's an emotional, because SUVs are bought with the heart, not with the mind, right? It's an emotional purchase.
Correct.
How can we express that in design? And how can we, bring that to where that product will be in 10 years? So if you saw recently, we did a Thar E, what is the Thar and what is the world now and going to be, and you marry those. Same with the little product you see behind us called the Rally. It's an EV, as you know, from the B family. But why can't EVs be fun? Why can't EVs be about adventure? Why can't EVs be about, exploration? That's exactly core to Mahindra. So can you marry the brand and what it stands for and the times that brand is in to make the product relevant all the time? That for me is good design in general, by the way. It's not just in automotive. So you'll see the best products have always reflected the best about the company or country that they've come from and have had the ability to stand the test of time. So I think in that space is where good design and automotive design is. A lot of people ask me, what do you think about retro design? Retro.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Now, I say that retro may be okay in some markets, right? So if you look at the Western European market or Japan, retro is okay because, those products from the 70s, 60s disappeared from people's, landscape, right?
Yeah.
So bringing it back is you're bringing something fresh. In India, our Kalipili taxi went off the roads day before yesterday or last week in Bombay. So it's something that people were seeing anyway. So if you bring retro or you bring something modern which looks like that, it still looks old. So you will be very careful, So in our context, therefore, retro doesn't work.
Oh.
In our context, because you see so much of the old stuff around anyway. So it's not that retro is bad or good. It's just what is right in what context. Just linked to that previous answer.
Yeah, true. Because as you said, when we go to when we see what is happening in developed countries like USA and Europe and all that, India is still in that naive stage when it comes to automobile design. And if today everybody, including non-designer people, if they are talking about design as a thing in the automobile industry, a lot of credit goes to you, because I have been following you and you have been very vocal about how design is important, how it is very crucial for the entire automobile ecosystem, and how it is very crucial to drive that emotion. As you said, SUVs are not a product or an object, but it's an emotion which makes or triggers the buyer to buy that vehicle, spend a lot of money just because that emotion is getting triggered. So I would say I highly admire whatever you have done, because back then when I was in NID in 2011 or so, not many people would know about design, including me. Not many people, at least I didn't know any designer back then, Indian designer. So it was quite a shocking thing, but I think now we are in a very different phase.
Yeah, you guys also, doing great work.
Yeah, it's part of our mission. Now that you have answered that thing very beautifully, what is automobile design? Now, when I get a chance to interact with design students, I get this feeling that they are not there in the design field for the right reasons. People don't clearly know what is going to happen. They might see a fancy sketch somewhere and they decide that, okay, fine, even I want something very fancy like this. I want to do something like this. So there are so many misconceptions like this. So I want to ask you this, referring to all the aspiring students there, who should pursue automobile design as a career?
Yeah. So, like you rightly said, I think what is known, unfortunately, is the glossy, glamorous side of automobile design, right? It's the sketches, it's the product launch, and someone standing and launching a product, and there's a lot of gloss and glamour around it. I would say that is literally a few hours that you do in the 48 months of a product that you develop. This is literally a few hours. Even the sketching phase is probably, a month and a half, 2 months at best in the, sort of 24 months of the design process. So what they get to see, unfortunately, is really literally the tip of the iceberg. And also the other thing is, a lot of people feel, oh, I love cars, so I can become a designer. I love plants, I can't be a botanist. Or I love birds, I can't be a ornithologist. It's beyond love. Yes, love is one of the basic things you have to have for any sector you want to get into. You want to be a doctor, you have to love human beings, right, in the first place. But that's not enough. Yeah. You have to go through 7-8 years of education and internships and training. So people should not forget that there is a huge amount of work. So I did a 5.5-year NID degree. Then I did 2 years in Royal College. So I studied for 7.5 years. I don't think people realize that. So I think, yes, having the intrinsic love is important. Like in any field, if you're an accountant, you have to love numbers. But, you have to go through the grind. And I don't think people see enough of the grind. How much effort and work goes in as a team, by the way. The sketch is just one small part of the process.
True.
The modelers, the design managers, the modeling managers, the clay and digital sculptors, the perceived quality people, the studio engineering, which talks to the rest of the engineering departments. I mean, there's intense amount of daily work. I mean, to stick with a program for 24 to 30 months takes that sort of real resilience. So if you have all of that, it could be a good place for you.
Wow. So as you rightly said, I think it's very unfortunate, but people usually see that tip of the iceberg all the time, and they make some perception about what happens in design.
It's like films, right? People see the two actors and they are in exotic places and locations. They don't see the hard work that the actors put in, first of all.
True.
But beyond that, they don't see the effort of the cinematographer, the light man, the spot boy, the digital effects.
True.
I mean, you see the list of names that comes right at the end of any film. It's very similar in automotive.
True.
The design bit is just one.
Yeah, in fact, even for a very long time, I used to feel the actors are only singing the songs. They are only writing it. They are only singing. So it was in childhood, but similar kind of perceptions are there for design also.
Correct.
Now that you have mentioned like who should do design, can you quickly tell like wrong reasons because of which people end up coming to design and then they regret very quickly?
So like I said, one of the wrong reasons is having only the love for it. I don't think that's enough. You have to have everything else that we said. The resilience, the hard work that you have to put in. I would also say that if you are midway through your education, in any case, a lot of people write to me who are studying chartered accountancy, who are in the third year of engineering. They say, oh, can we just switch now? They do that because they don't, I think, appreciate the amount of effort it takes to then become a designer. So I always tell them that, of course, you can, but you have to go back to your BDes. You have to do a bachelor's, then do a master's, then hopefully, So do you have the time and the resource to do that? It's also expensive to study.
Oh, yeah.
So don't do it for just love. Be ready for the hard work. And definitely don't do it for the glamour. I know these things look amazing, but don't do it just for the glamour. Like I said, it's a few hours in the years and months of hard work involved. I mean, you know that as well, I'm sure, but it's not about that. And a lot of people will see, design directors launching products and, talking to journalists and people like you and think that this is all they do, right? But it's not that. So don't do it definitely for those two reasons.
Okay. And when you were talking about all this, you were also saying that these are not the only things which are required. So let's imagine a student who is, let's say, in 12th standard or probably about to, figure out what he wants to do for his career. and probably design is one of the options for him. So what do you think, like what are the skills or the inherent traits which he or she should look for, and probably which can give them more clarity? Okay, okay, fine, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that, and that's why probably design is a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, in fact, it's funny you asked. I just got today two DMs from two kids in the 12th standard, actually,
Okay.
who wants to study design. And that's why I said, this is such an important thing for us to do. So, if I just rewind to where I was, of course, you have many options in front of you. But I was very clear I wanted to do something in design in the first place. So, for me, the option was architecture, or as I found out about industrial design, it was industrial design. There was no car design.
Okay.
So, at least something to do with the artistic side of the world is where you should be, right? I had no conflict that I want to be an accountant or maybe a designer, and let me see which one I get into. I had no conflict like that. So I think a bit of clarity, and I don't mean, I want to be a graphic designer. If you have that clarity, it's great. But at least you should say that I want to do something with the industrial arts, which is architecture, design, all of that. So if you're in that zone, then you already are doing some things without you knowing them. So it's like a young guy who's playing cricket or tennis without the real coaching, but he's got the interest, he's playing, he's practicing, he's doing a lot of right things already without someone telling them. You're probably already doing that. So things like observation, things like understanding why something looks the way it does. What is the function behind something? Have you opened up old alarm clock or whatever it is? Are you curious? So I think you should intrinsically have those. Those are not things you can teach someone. You can't say, oh, now can you from tomorrow be really curious about everything?
Yeah.
So either you have it or you don't.
Correct.
It's very important. A power of observation, for example. So in my time, when I sat for the NID exam, for example, one of the questions was a fountain pen nib. Draw it 10 times the size of what it actually is.
Wow, okay.
And just at one question, you can see how many things come into play. Do you understand scale? Because they said very clearly 10 times.
10 times.
Do you understand scale? Do you understand detail? Do you understand what's written? When you write hero or whatever it was, does it show a bit of curvature? Because, the nib was curved. It has that slit in the middle. It ends in a little ball, so you can't learn that on the day. It's either you've noticed it before or you've not. So I think I would tell someone who asks me that, I always say that, do you have some sort of artistic inclination? You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be the best sketcher in the world, but it's something you're probably already doing. And, if you are, then this could be a good option for you as design. Technically you shouldn't get into a design school without this basic stuff anyway, and which is why you have entrance exams. And I don't know how entrance exams are nowadays, but like I said, the exam should very clearly identify people who have few of these traits, curiosity, observation, and some artistic talent.
No, absolutely true. I think because I have seen many people who have, gotten frustrated very soon, after going to design, and they thought, okay, they'll be doing fancy sketches, but when they got the reality check, then they got frustrated. Many of them, they regret, getting into design. They also now shifting to other disciplines. So there are so many stories like that, and I completely agree that if I have to summarize whatever you said just now, one thing is that artistic inclination, that sensitivity towards form and whatever is around you, shapes. And then second thing you said that curiosity or observation. So I remember when I was I had this honor of being on the panel of NID recently, and one of the senior faculties from there, he happened to ask the student during the interview, sketch the NID logo,
right,
which was there on the
main gate.
And he was clueless. I didn't expect this question. He was like, I prepared for these things, but this is something which was out of my syllabus. And that's why. So if somebody is curious enough, naturally, I think that's the biggest sign for a designer, I would say.
Absolutely.
So beautifully summarized, whatever is required.
In the same breath, I want to say that automotive design or let's call it transportation design, right?
Okay,
Because there's
perfect.
two-wheelers, we do tractors, there's trucks and buses, there's LCVs, there's cars and SUVs, there's three-wheelers, there's train, sort of rolling stock design. So transportation design, if you look at it, is not only about the two streams that make the sketches, interior, exterior. No.
Correct.
You can find, if you love being part of transportation design, you can always find also a place for you. Let me give you an example. If you're really organized and you love Excel sheets and you love timing, and you could be a design project manager, for example, who keeps the program on track. By the way, designers, as you know, sometimes forget, right, the context in which they're working in terms of cost, time, all of that. Design program management, amazing. You can be a digital modeler, you can be a clay modeler, you can be a PQ specialist, you can be a, if engineering sections really turns you on, you can be a PQ specialist. You can be a studio engineer, the person who's a go between the creative teams and the engineering teams. You can be a modeling manager, if you've got, if you know about CAM and CAD and milling and 5-axis milling machines, there is a place for you. I think when you said the frustration comes is when they know that, oh, there are only these two streams within automotive or transportation design. No, but there's everything else. We have paint technologists. This color hasn't just come from a can, right? Someone has formulated that shade, which can then be sprayed in the plant. You have different plants that have different spraying technology. You have parts that come from suppliers. So if I say yellow, the front bumper will come from supplier A. The body we have painted, the rear bumper comes from supplier B. When it all comes together, it's got to look yellow, right? Yellow. So there's a lot behind that, and there's therefore a variety of disciplines. And I think in a future, sort of podcast, we'll do that. We'll talk about the various disciplines.
Oh, that will be great.
And we can expand on each of them because they are really professions within automotive design or transportation design.
True.
And I think the frustration comes when they think that I'm going to come, make a sketch and be amazing. No, maybe it's something else you can do.
Yeah.
So.
No, brilliantly. I think this is becoming a masterclass for all the aspiring designers over here, including me, because even I am getting to know many things over here. Now that, Pratap, you have already answered so many things, if we have to take that same persona, now who has decided to become a transportation designer, so how he or she should, focus on things, because I feel those 2 years of masters or 4 years of, bachelor degree in design, I think it's such a short duration to, grasp so many things which are happening around you. And I genuinely feel, I don't know, you can tell your opinion also, but I feel when you are studying design, the maximum amount of design happens after your class. Like when you are sitting with your peers and figuring out so many things, or taking that thumbnail sketch, extending it and finding out, okay, how this form is behaving when it comes to render and everything. So I want to understand from you, if you have to tell that same persona, what are the things to focus on during their education journey, or they can prepare themselves fitting for the design industry?
Yeah, true. Like I said, I think the skills are something you have to have.
Okay.
When you graduate. If you can't draw when you graduate, then, it'll be harder for you to even get into a studio. So I think the portfolio, the weightage of, in everything that you learn, I think that for automotive and transport, I would say, the ability to put down on paper in a precise, in a sort of beautiful sort of way, because I'll tell you, believe it or not, and you do because you work in an OEM, millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of investment, or crores or hundreds of crores of investment is decided sometimes based on a sketch on a wall, right? When you show sketches to the management, what are they seeing? They don't have the vehicle, they have nothing. They're betting on a sketch. But in addition to that, I would always say, please master a couple of other things. One is presentation skill, fundamental. How you talk about what you've put on the wall.
Hmm.
And I think people don't realize how important that is. You know, when you're presenting to your peers or your own boss or even the board of a company, you know, how you have to modulate your message, what you say to who.
Hmm.
So if you're presenting to someone from finance in your company, you know, you don't talk about, oh, this is the line quality
Yeah.
and this is the shadow and this is the highlight. You don't talk about that.
Hmm.
The same product, you will have to use a different vocabulary.
Hmm.
If you're speaking to someone in HR in your company, same product, you will have to explain in a completely different way. You'll have to say, look, this is the area why, you know, I'm asking you for 3 additional digital modelers because this is what we have to do.
Hmm.
This is where the work shows up on a product. If we don't create the digital data, everything downstream gets stopped. So how many ever people you hire in the plant or in downstream activities in the process, if I don't release data here and I don't have the right people or the right quality and the right number, that stream stops. So how you explain the same design message is very important based on who you're talking to. So when you're a student, you should practice that. You know, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know how the exams are anymore. In my time, it used to be, of course, a presentation-based examination. We had nothing written really. And I think that really helped. So I would say, you know, get your presentation skills absolutely nailed. You should also know the language that different people use in a company and how you tell that story. You know, so if I'm talking to the sourcing people, I will say, look, so many parts, this is carried over from that product. You know, so the investment is lower or whatever, you know. You have to know how to tailor your message to the audience. When I speak to journalists or when I speak to you or when we speak to the customer, we won't say, oh, you know, I use this door handle from that car and it's carryover and, you know, we save money. That's not what you would say, right?
Right.
You would talk about something totally different. So learn and focus. You have to have the skills, like I said, the base skills. But above that, the layer has to be how you tell the same story to different people.
Interesting.
You know, so if I'm going to, again, if I want to tell a very complex story to a child, I will say it in a certain way. If I have to tell it to, you know, an adult who's mature, I will say it in a different way. If I have to tell that same story, let's say, I don't know, Ramayana, to someone from another country or culture, I would describe it in a different way, right?
Correct.
So it's the same thing. And I think people literally don't know how to tell stories anymore about their own work. You know, why did you do what you did?
Correct.
Right? And there are many factors which create this form. It's not only, you know, design, you know, there's a context in which, you know.
Wow.
So be a great storyteller. I cannot tell you how much I would like to emphasize this point. You know,
And especially for a designer.
especially for a designer, stand in front of the mirror, imagine your listener, target listener. Is it a journalist? Is it your mother? Is it your grandmother? How do you explain this to your grandmother? You know, it would be very different from how I explain it to you, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So get them to practice that.
So you said storytelling, basically how to present and whom to present.
Yeah.
And the first thing was your visualization skills, like sketching.
Please have that.
I feel when it comes to automobile design, that is something which you can't escape.
Yeah. Look, when I landed in Italy after NID, you know, I didn't speak a word of Italian, right? But you still have to start work.
Yeah.
So the only tool, the only language you had was drawing.
Wow.
You know, how do you explain to a modeler that, you know, this is out, that's in? You draw a section. That was all you had. When I moved to Japan, it was the same thing. Now, did I stop working? No, you couldn't, right?
True.
So, you know, in those sort of challenges, your basic skill, which is, I say visualization and drawing, and however it is. I mean, some people visualize on, you know, on Blender and whatever, but you don't always have that, right, with you.
Yeah.
So focus on that base. The rest is sort of you can build on, but if you don't have that and storytelling ability, you're in trouble as a designer.
It's funny that you mentioned all those tools because the next question, what I was going to ask is about all these tools, especially with AI. Every day, these designers are getting, thrown away, thrown with a lot of, tools which are equally potential. They have their own, pros and cons and capabilities. And as a design student, it gets very overwhelming because, when they have a very short duration, like 2 years, to understand and learn about design, every day they are getting new tool to learn, and it gets very overwhelming. And what would be your suggestion to deal with that, pressure of changing technology almost every day?
Yeah, so look, I always tell everyone the best piece of software is the one between your ears, that hopefully never changes so often. But the rest of it, look, having a basic, pen or a marker will never go out of style and will never go out of fashion, and it always does the job. I still use it today. But of course, that's not enough. I wouldn't be able to put my own sketches on the wall today, right? Because the level at which, students and young designers have reached. But I would say stick to a few basic tools which are powerful enough. So, the pen, pencil, of course, that's the basic. Some Photoshop skill. And then many are moving into, I would say, Blender.
Oh, yeah.
But I think these three should be enough, more than enough actually, to, if you want to be a designer, if you want to be a cast modeler, maybe, you wouldn't need to know a bit of Grasshopper or, Alias, of course. So again, depending on what you choose to do in the field, focus on those. Don't get overwhelmed by, you could have the best technology at your hands and still come up with the worst sort of piece of design. And you could have nothing, and just a marker and a pen, and you can create something really beautiful on paper. But I would say, yes, I don't want to be very simplistic either. I think to be spotted and noticed and be effective in design studios today, I would say, the sketching part, Photoshop, and then at least some amount of Blender. You don't have to be a Class A modeler or, but at least to get the volumes and proportions that you're looking for. If you have these three, I think by and large, if you're choosing the interior exterior design part, you should be okay.
I'll tell you one of my experiences when I had gone to NID to take a masterclass, and the first day, so it was first semester student, and I was teaching them the bike design sketching.
Yeah.
So I was asking them to show me like what kind of levels or skill set you have.
Right.
So I asked everyone to sketch motorcycles, whatever they know, whatever their skill sets are.
Yeah.
Just draw few motorcycles and show it to me. And everyone over there, they pulled out their iPads and they started sketching on them. And Control Z, again and again they were doing. I was asking them, okay, we'll go to iPad later, but show me hand sketches first. And literally, like only 2 people in that class had papers. And
Wow.
I was kind of, surprised and shocked in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Like what is happening here?
Where's the sketchbook, at least?
Yeah. So what do you want to say to that? Do you think, because there are, 2
schools of thought
here, that sketching is something which will build the muscle for,
yes,
form and shapes. And then there are other people who believes that fine sketching has become old school and you can jump to any other tool which you feel like choosing from, and then basically just showcase your idea. What is your opinion about this?
Yeah, I have still to find the person who can go straight to that without some sketching.
Okay.
I really think lots of resolution, ideation happens in sketching. For me, I've started, for example, going back to the sketchbook and paper, I started using something called Remarkable. Remarkable is, it feels like you're drawing on paper, but it's a digital tablet. It's not like an iPad. iPad feels very digital. Remarkable still feels you're drawing on paper. It's got that, the texture
and
and it's a very simple tool. It doesn't have like 100 pens and brushes and God knows. It's got 5 or 6 things that you would have on your desk.
This was there before Vacuums came into picture.
Yeah. So I love the Remarkable, but I always have a sketchbook in my bag. when I'm traveling, or I'll sketch on if there is a physical boarding pass, I'll sketch there. But I always have a sketchbook. I think to jump straight to some sort of digital tool without making a few basic sketches is not, I mean, at least it doesn't work for me or anyone I know.
Same
All
here.
our designers, sit and sketch. Yes, like I said, the medium may have changed, but it's still sketching. I mean, you give them a piece of paper, they can draw as well. So, yeah.
I also believe like it's difficult for me to straight away jump to the digital software without doing any sketches, because I don't know if it is the right example or not, but it's like eating with hand or eating with spoon, the kind of feel you will get. I know I might get some backlash for
Chopsticks.
this. Chopsticks. But anyway, but I think I also agree with you.
I think the message is, don't let the software decide, what sort of designer you are and how you ideate. It can be definitely a tool in that, and the tool will change, right? When we started, it was Canson paper and white sort of pencils and chalk. Of course I wouldn't use that today. I wouldn't even expect anyone to use that, right? And then we came to tablets and markers and all of that. But I don't think the medium should ever stop you ideating, nor should it also dictate what you do. Don't become a slave to that. Don't think that, I don't have the Wacom, so I can't be a designer, or I don't have this and I can't do that, I think that should be independent of, the medium you use.
As you said before also, that the most powerful tool you have is between your ears.
Please.
And I think hands are also something which you will have like throughout your life.
Yeah.
You won't be able to carry your tools and everything whenever you want to discuss some idea with engineers or something, because it gets very convenient whenever I am getting to discuss with engineers about some idea of mine. I can quickly sketch some sections. I can sketch some rough views, not accurate, but it sort of conveys the idea,
the message.
The message. So I think hand sketching, I believe, like agreeing to you, I think it's something which will always be there, no matter what tool comes into the market.
Absolutely.
Now that we have talked about all these tools and what sets you apart, now you being at this position, I'm sure like you'll be seeing hundreds of portfolios very often, right? So tell us very quickly, like when it comes to selecting a particular student or particular designer from that entire lot, what are the things you look for, and what are the things which becomes like a big red flags for you?
So one is the red flag. I can tell you, if something is designed out of context, the person has to design that object in a context, whatever the context may be. Context could be 2057, the world, and they've designed something there. So I think the link between context and the object is important, because the object is the context. This is going to be the context. When you look at EVs in the country of a certain type, this will create that context. So my red flag is when there's a sketch of something and you have no idea into what world and time it fits into. So that for me is a huge red flag.
Interesting.
The positives are, of course, I'll tell you, I would say 60 to 70% of the new talent we've hired, and I'm saying this, 6 or 7 out of 10 of the new talent we've hired is based on their Instagram page.
Wow, that's something very interesting.
So we find them there, and then you of course go through the interview process and all of that. But we have found people and hired people based on what they've put on Instagram. So the way they've said their story on Instagram, and they don't, again, it's not about putting the best stuff. Some guys will really put the thinking sketches, like real thumbnails, one lines, and then they go all the way to, sort of finished renders and all of that. But we have found so many people on Insta. So please create an Instagram presence. This is incredible. I mean, I hired a Canadian Iranian. HR have found him.
Oh, wow.
Can you tell me?
Yeah.
We found him on Insta. We sent him a message. He responded, and we hired him, and he designed the Thari.
Oh,
for example. So, it's we have a designer from Brazil.
Wow.
How would we have found him?
So, yeah, you have answered my next question as well. So, I was going to ask you if social media is important for aspiring designers.
Yeah.
And I feel now Instagram page or any page for that matter is becoming like a profile or a portfolio for
Yeah.
the students.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm so glad that you answered already that question. Okay, now that we have very limited amount of time, I want to understand from you very quickly, what do you think is the future landscape of Indian automobile design? Because as you said, India is still figuring out many things. India is probably not to that level when it comes to automobile design compared to all the Western countries. But future certainly looks bright, I would say, and future has so many things in basket unsaid for us. So I want to understand from you, how does the future landscape of not just automobile, I'm saying automobile design industry of India look like according to you?
So I think two things. One is I'll slightly disagree with your first point. I think, if you see what you all are doing or, other startups, we spoke about ultraviolet just now. What we are trying to do in Mahindra, Tata Motors, Suzuki, the people who have design presence in India, TVS, Bajaj. I think some of the work is literally as good, if not better, than any design that comes out. And like I said, I always judge design with context, with suitability to a context. And I feel some of the great products we're doing in India today can actually sell anywhere in the world. Because, by the way, I think the Indian market is the most complex to design for. There's cost, there's you go 100 kilometers, the language has changed. From north to south, India is so varied, east to west. If you can design a product which is successful in India, I think you have a great chance of it succeeding overseas, which is not necessarily the case the other way around. You have many global, so-called global products, they come to India, they bomb. So I think to understand the context and the context in which we are designing, many of the automotive companies are doing very, very well. And I really think they are. And the second thing is it's already happening, Saket, is that incredible talent is being created here. I think what we may lack is experience, but I don't think we lack talent at all.
Okay.
We may lack experience because purely it's a young profession in India. But the talent that we are seeing coming, they're also going global. So what I love is that Indian products, etc. This is a time from, I think the make in India, made in India, I think designed in India is coming. That's for sure. And what's great is that talent is going overseas. I don't call it a brain drain at all. We are a huge country. We will produce an incredible pool of creative people. But what's great, like I said, is that now people in Polestar, in Renault, in Japan, in the US, Indian designers who are working in various OEMs. It really makes me happy. In my time, it was so hard. I think I was, like I said, lucky or made my own luck. Somehow landed up in Piaggio. But it's superb to see, so many people. Sandeep Bamra, for one, Nirmit Soni, there are all these guys working overseas and so many others.
Right.
So I think that's the next bit I wanted to talk about, that Indian products and services, of course, designed in India for the world, but also Indian designers working overseas. That's going to be a huge phase, because I think our people, our talent come from this real intense environment. So for us to then fit into some other global context is a little easier, I would say.
Wow, what a beautifully answered question. Yeah, I believe that's happening. And I was talking to Nirmit and a couple of other designers who are working there.
Yep.
And they are probably equally, if not better, but equally good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So because of the time limitation, we come to the final question. I want to understand if there is any final sort of an advice for aspiring designers or the designers like me also, who are already in the industry?
Yeah, I would say, don't ever, like I said, maybe I'm repeating, but at the cost of repeating, don't forget the context in which you're designing. Don't forget the company or brand for which you're designing. It can't be, oh, I'm Pratap Bose or I'm Saket, and this is the same design I do regardless of where I am. It's not about you. It's about the product that the company puts out, and really intensely understand that context, what truly your brand that you're working for means. And I think you're a great designer if you can modulate and understand that, and then come up with the right solution for that company. Not, I've produced something, now, take it or leave it. I think there's a certain arrogance that comes, especially with time, that, I'm a designer, I was successful in ABC company, I'll come and do the same thing in company D. It doesn't necessarily work. I think over and above everything, I'm assuming that, you can do all the basics. Over and above everything, understand your brand passionately, intensely. Don't get trapped by it, but understand where you can take it. And, you have the huge responsibility. Believe me, in a company, Saket, the design team is actually one of the few teams who is paid to predict the future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're paid to predict the future. We are one of the only departments that looks ahead 7, 10, 8, 11 years, where your brand will be, where the world will be, what am I going to create in that world, therefore. So I would say understand your corporate context very, very well.
Yeah.
And, work to make that better and stronger. Understand business. We didn't speak about that today, but because we were talking more on the student side, but to be successful in a corporate design environment, you must understand the business side of where you are.
Probably we can do that as a second podcast very soon. What a powerful note to end this awesome podcast with you, Pratap.
Thank you.
Pratap, again, I would say thank you so much. Thanks for inviting us here and thanks for being here on the show. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And I hope to see very soon on the next episode where we'll discuss all those things which we couldn't.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.